Humans have been connected with animals for a very long time, and relationships between humans and animals are documented in almost every ancient culture. In ancient Egypt, pets were treated as family and were often buried with their owners. Dogs and cats were often mummified, but occasionally one would be buried with a sheep or a cow. Some animals were worshipped as deities. Bastet, a cat-headed goddess, was a solar goddess until the Greek influence on their culture. She was then associated with Artemis, the goddess of the moon and the hunt, and also the protector of young animals. Mafdet is another animal deity in the Egyptian culture. Often shown in the form of a panther, Mafdet was invoked to cure snake bites. Another culture that worshipped animal gods was India. In the 4th millennium, India was an agricultural settlement. Dogs and cats were domesticated and kept as pets, while elephants were used as work animals. Ganesha, the remover of obstacles, is an elephant-headed god worshipped in the Hindu religion, which began in 3000 BC. Hinduism beliefs show that both humans and animals are reborn after death. Around the same time, Chinese people began to practice animal husbandry, and animals were used for transportation, such as horse-drawn carriages. Also, animal skins were no longer needed for clothing, as silk began to be more widely used. China's emperor in 1000 BC, Wen Wang, established the first zoo, known as the Garden of Intelligence, which held exotic animals. In Greece, animals were used for food, clothing, and work. Their beliefs were that everything in nature has a purpose. Pythagoras and his followers believed that animals had souls and became some of the earliest vegetarians. Aristotle was considered the father of zoology, writing about animal anatomy, behavior, and reproduction. He believed in a natural hierarchy where everything is ranked by perfection. Free men were at the top of the list, with slaves, children, and women below, followed by animals and then plants. He considered animals to have limited souls that can think and feel, but not ration, putting them below human souls. In the Roman religion, animal sacrifices were common, made to their gods. Animal abuse was common in ancient Rome. The Colosseum was a large arena where hungry animals were often turned against each other in a fight to the death. Texts describe the fights as gory, and by modern standards, torturous and cruel. One animal in the Romans were particular to was the horse. Horses were used for postal service, armies, and the basic economy depended on equine success. Epona, the Gaulish horse goddess, was worshipped for protection of horses, and shrines were often erected in stables. Humans and animals have been dependent on each other since animals were first domesticated. Humans depend on animals for resources, and animals depend on humans for protection. Humans are very dependent on animals. They provide food, clothing, work, and transportation. Over 4,000 years ago, simple plows were developed in the agricultural world, pulled by oxen, camels, and elephants. These animals tilled the land quicker and easier than doing it by hand, leading to the production of more crops. These plows made by the early Egyptians pushed the soil to either side to make a shallow trench. The Greeks improved upon this design by fitting it with wheels. In order to prepare the land, it was plowed both vertically and horizontally in right angles. Cattle, sheep, and goats were the first animals to be domesticated for food. Swine followed, though pigs might have been domesticated to dispose of waste. Animals that are from large herds are simpler to domesticate. Animals are considered domestic when they depend on humans to survive. They become different than they are found in the wild and are kept for some distinct purpose. Sheep were domesticated 11,000 to 15,000 years ago in the mountains of Southeast Europe and Southwest Asia. They were bred for their wool and meat, as they are today. Cattle were first domesticated around the same time and place, and used for meat, milk, and work. Eventually, horses replaced cattle for labor. Horses were domesticated much later, only about 5,000 years ago. First, they were used for meat, but later they were used for draft animals. Pigs were domesticated around the same time, used in farming communities. In America, agriculture began in the late 1400s when Columbus brought livestock to the West Indies. In the 1860s, horses and mules were replaced by railroads and U.S. boxcars, and they became refrigerated so meat could be shipped from farms to marketplaces. Beef became more popular around this time, replacing pork. In 1862, the Land Grant Act provided land to universities so agriculture could be taught on a larger scale. Animals are a large part of the clothing industry, with wool, leather, and pelts being commonly used. Many animal products have been used for shelter, hides have been used in teepees, and from a more modern standpoint, horsehair is often used in plaster. Early civilizations used bones for tools. Humans and animals have helped each other to survive. Many cultures and societies have had dealings with animals, and this also created animal cruelty, abuse, and animal rights. Many people from the past have killed animals for various reasons, such as meat, skin, and some cultures require rituals and sacrifices of animals. As we grew closer to these animals, we started creating certain laws to protect them and stop the suffering. Animal abuse is when the owner is neglecting their pet and is not doing what the animal needs them to do, and when a person is causing intentional harm to the animal. When a person causes the infliction of pain, suffering, and death to the animal, it is considered animal abuse. But there is an exception to these, not including death, when you are training or teaching discipline to the animal, or someone is trying to help them. No animal should be hurt for sport, fun, or temper. Sometimes there are cases when the animal isn't being physically hurt. One of the most common activities is chaining a dog to a doghouse. It isn't violating laws as long as it gets food and water, but the dog isn't getting all it needs. The dog needs love as much as it needs food and water. The dog is given shelter, water, and food in good amounts, but it is not getting affectionate care. A dog, and other animals as well, long for companionship and attention. The dog is in almost complete isolation. It wouldn't be used to company. We can stop this by giving the animals the attention they deserve. A good quantity of proper care, water, food, shelter, medical care, and human treatment is expected of a good owner. The crimes against animals vary, as does the punishment. The punishment is different in every state. The time in jail is between 10 years and 30 days, depending on your crime. Fines also depend on what you have done, but in Colorado, the jail time is 18 months with a fine of $5,000. There is no specific time in history where humans gave rights to animals, but in all periods of history, animals are found to be respected. Shown in prehistory, research suggests that ancestors found animals to be divine messengers. Different cultures, after the Common Era, had different views. Ancient Hebrews and Greeks were documented to have an animal-friendly point of view. In the early 5th century, Western cultural governments dismissed other animals, putting humans on a dominant level. There were many who were more caring towards animals, such as Francis of Assisi. In the Middle Age, at a time of industrial revolution, more animal-friendly views came to light. More and more people came to the aid of animals, starting animal shelters. Homeless animals used to be a nuisance to people. When animals were not claimed, they were put in factories to be disposed of quickly and as quietly as possible. As the role of pets in people's lives changed, people started looking for care for the homeless animals and strays. Trends started to spread through the United States, and more people started to help the cause. They started creating a friendly and inviting place to help the animals, and people could also adopt and give the animals a better home. Later, there was a rising demand for homes for the animals. The shelters were giving good homes, medical, and loving attention. The first care for animals was a pound, which then evolved to the shelters that we have today. In colonial times, pounds were for livestock that was found wandering around. These animals were taken for their economic value. They were given a price to be taken back out. When dogs and cats started being put in pounds, they were often killed because they had no real value at the time. The people didn't want them, and they were too much trouble to hold on to if no one was going to buy them. They were a waste of food, water, medical, and care. The ASPCA is the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It was founded in 1866 as the first animal welfare organization in the United States. Our mission is to provide effective means for the prevention of cruelty to animals, said Henry Burr, the founder. ASPCA is not affiliated with other organizations. Their main focus was on horses and not any other animals. Several other organizations and shelters were founded in major cities after the start of it. The shelter's role was not to provide humane care, but to provide public safety. SPCA, Women's Branch of Pennsylvania, was the first organization focused on the humane treatment for animal shelters. In the late 1970s, vet communities had little input in the management policies of the shelters. Instead of focusing on humane veterinarian care, they were focused on humane deaths for the animals that had not been reclaimed or adopted. Killing methods used to be clubbing, drowning, electrocution, decompression chambers, and poisoning. These were all thought to be quick and humane when they were used. In the late 1970s, concern about life quality rose from the people in shelters, and medical care was put into shelters. More and more people started donating to animal shelters, and they became more comfortable each year. The past and the modern world have all been in contact with animals, and we rely on each other to survive. Most ancient cultures have animal gods and rituals that have to do with animals. We use animals for meat and their pelts. But we also give the animals protection. Once we domesticate the animals, it was our job to keep our pets safe and loved. We keep trying to help the homeless and disadvantaged animals. If every owner gave their pet a good home and love, then we can start our way to a better life for them. If you need a companion, there is always a pet that needs a good home. The shelters are giving the pets a place to stay until they find their family, but we can always help by giving them that home or donations to their shelter. We have those rights and responsibilities.